not to mention the rest of you. Oh, I guess it started.
Yeah,
It says recording.
Yep.
no.
Okay. Good. So, reports, questions, concerns, successes, failures. What are you having difficulty doing? It's all easy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
I think well, last week's class was kind of, and this I printed this out, in small print at 6 pages. So two over, and I really want to. I really appreciate this, this kind of holistic, way that we look at this, that you teach this, right? And so just kind of making sure I absorb that. And still working on dissolving, and it's not that there's anything I don't understand. I think it's just, again, a matter of there's just all of these things we're trying to put together and add to our understanding. So
It's a lot.
it's a lot, but I'm not complaining. But yeah.
Yeah,
It's a work in progress, as we say.
absolutely. Bill or Bill?
Nothing in particular.
Okay.
This week I was working on letting my legs do the work and trying not to have my arms muscling up in any way whatsoever.
Uh-huh. Good.
So
And how did that go?
When it worked, it felt very good. So but it's especially with me, I think, because my history has been one of overdoing the hands and arms. So it didn't always work, but I began to get the hang of it. So
Good. Good. That's certainly a good thing to work on.
yeah. There's, I mean, we have whatever it is, 83 different things that we work on.
It only feels like 83.
I just choose one thing usually a week to really focus on, trying to pay attention to the other 82, but yeah.
Good. No, that's good. Mr. Bynum, anything for you?
Yeah, I've been sort of stealing practices and doing the short, like 8 or 10, and focusing on that is still, I don't consider it, really the full thing, but it's a real good practice. Having that shorter number of repetitions somehow sharpens my attention, which can generally wander, unfortunately. But yeah, the one thing in particular that I've realized I don't do that well is I go into the C curve, but then coming out of it, I lose. It's not very energetic, and I lose that. I like being in the C curve rather than being extended out of the C curve. So,
I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah. Once you get in, and part of the reason is because it feels good for my L4, if I have a low back problem,
Okay.
and I can actually do it extra.
Mhm.
I can do it to resolve tension there, even just sitting down or walking around or something, and having that in my little tool bag helps. So, but that doesn't necessarily, just focusing on that doesn't necessarily help with the flow, with the energy flowing
Mhm.
that coming into it and going out of it does. So.
Yeah. Um, you hadn't done energy gates, did you? Learn the Taoist spine stretch?
Well, we did the long stance. I have done the spine stretch where you start, right up at the top and go all the way down. And
No, you
is that
start at the bottom and go
you
all the way
start at the
up.
bottom and go all the
But
way
then
up?
you have to go
Okay.
back down.
Well, there you go. That's a summary of my experience.
Whoops.
At the wrong end.
Well, no, what I was going to say was that the Taoist spine stretch is not doing the C curve.
Mm,
It's a different practice, and it's the one that can be really beneficial, particularly for lower back issues. Um, I use it a lot and have for probably 15 years now. It's what kept me out of pain most of that time. So
mm,
I encourage you to revisit that uh, and distinguish between it and the C curve, because trying to use the C curve to treat the back does not work as well as using the Taoist spine stretch.
Mhm.
mhm.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's good to make the distinction between those two practices. Because, you're absolutely right. The C curve needs to keep moving. It's not bend, lock, straighten, lock,
Mm,
but it needs to be a continuous movement that's going constantly.
right, right.
And that's not easy. I'm not putting any pressure on you that you ought to be able to do that. Not at all necessarily, but to work towards that.
I know that it's engaging with the twisting in and out also with the spine. And I feel like I've gotten the gradual twisting in and out much better than I did early on, where I sort of get twisted out and then keep on moving with my arms or get twisted in. But doing that gradually does help,
Mhm.
uh, you know, going into it. It's just it's not exactly that I'm not doing this straightening out, but I'm not doing it very energetically.
Mhm.
Mm.
But yeah, so that's been a
Well,
focus of mine, is the spine.
yeah, I think when we get to really talking about opening and closing, that may help that, because um, certainly the movement of the spine and the C curve is a significant piece of opening and closing and pulsing the energy. So that can being able to incorporate that clearly, I think, can help really be aware of the energy movement and encourage it. So, so in a way, I say congratulations. I don't know whether I really mentioned this or not, but you have managed to get through both the beginning and the intermediate one level of this particular God's training. So we are beginning the intermediate two levels.
Right.
So
And only 15 more to go.
well,
Yeah.
actually, I will say in this particular training, there are just four
4.
levels.
Okay.
Bruce indicates that there are 7. I really cannot teach beyond 4, but 4 gives us more than enough to concentrate
Yeah.
on.
Right. Right.
Believe me.
So when you say that, David, you have you have gone beyond 4, but it's just not something you feel you can teach.
Yeah,
I'm just curious
I
about
have
the
not
process.
I've only gone a little bit beyond 4.
Okay.
I have not gone all the way. 7, as I understand it, actually is arriving where at a point where you are literally meditating as you do
Uh-huh.
God. And that doesn't mean you're simply making meditative movement.
Uh-huh.
It is actually meditating at a very deep level with very advanced practices, which I just haven't done yet
Yep.
and may not.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Those just
we'll
have to
see
give
what
up
happens.
everything else in your life to keep practicing. Right.
Right, right. Um, if nothing else, I've learned that there is no end to where you
Right.
can continue to grow in these practices. So, um, one thing to be aware of is that God's contains the entirety of all the Neigong within Taoism. What we call beginning, intermediate, or advanced are divided by very fuzzy lines. So qi does not move through the human body in a linear fashion, as I think you know. It moves in the body through spirals of energy. A straight line is created by drawing through the middle of a spiral. And everything that is done in every method within Taoism is circular. All of Taoism and everything in it is based upon circularity. And if you join 2 circles together, you end up with a spiral. So at one level, Taoists don't actually think of circles and spirals and spheres as being all that different. They're all the same things by different names. But in the West, we have a tendency to want to clarify things. A is B, B is C, and onward. Then you could say that spiraling is a distinct part of the 16 Neigong. Now, as a general rule, if you're learning God's playing in the clouds in a Taoist monastery, usually you had a very good control of spiraling energy inside your body from earlier Qigong practices you had done. You would not be introduced to how spiraling was happening with God's playing in the clouds. But we're in the West and we're trying to introduce this in across a cultural barrier, and so we will have it in this training. Now, if you look at spiraling inside the human body, it primarily manifests in 3 ways. The simplest way it manifests is that your body rotates. It turns from one side to the other. And the second way is that it actually twists so that the spiraling inside the tissue is almost next to the bone. And the third way is when you really start getting into the game, you start talking about the spiraling that exists inside the central channel and inside the bone marrow or matrix of your body. The bone marrow is the place in the middle of the bones. We're going to start with how to rotate, rotating the arms inward and outward. A simple definition of this is outward means away from your spine, inward means toward the center line, towards your spine. Remember that the arms have two possibilities depending on which edge you focus on. So I'm assuming you're clear about that. Anybody not clear what I meant by that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The human body is always rotating. You have to rotate if you want to twist a jar lid. You rotate when you want to make your arm go to left or right or up or down. So you're constantly rotating. But as you know, this is not the same as twisting, because twisting requires that you actually take the fascia inside the body and you twist it. The fascia twisting inside the body has to penetrate the body and start doing it with also with the internal organs, your glands, and in other words, everything that is inside your bag of skin. And when you begin to twist, the one thing you don't really want to do very much is twist the bone. Your bones can twist, but the great trouble is that if you focus on the bone, it's very hard not to exceed the tolerance level of the bones. For example, a major thing that happens in all kinds of accidents, car accidents and others, is that due to the force of the accident, you get parts of the bone that twist more than they are supposed to go. And that creates stress inside the bones. A doctor of osteopathy can twist the bones. Qigong, Tuina can do it. You can usually take the strain out of the bone. But the last thing you want to do is, by your own actions, put strain into your bones. Because usually you will not feel the effects of that immediately, but you will feel it somewhere down the road, 5 years or so. Your bones will just not quite connect up to the rest of your tissue in the way they should. And so you don't want to twist your bones. Now, if something in your body is soft, blood vessels, muscles, ligaments, fascia, they twist just fine. The body is designed to do that. What is not really designed to do it is the actual matrix of the bone. So you have to be very careful about that. Now, the other thing that we will be playing around with is, is this. It's that we've got to be wrapping the fascia in the torso. It is going all the way from the spine to the front and all the way from the front to the spine. The biggest single important reason why this is done is that the twisting of the fascia will connect all the energy channels that go around your body horizontally. You have vertical channels, but you also have horizontal channels. And the twisting of the fascia is the way that you get all those channels open and continuously staying open through the whole exercise of God's playing in the clouds. Now we're coming to the point where the program is going to change. You're going to be beginning with movement 2 and forgetting movement 1. You're going to do 2 through 7.
Ooh.
You're still going to be doing 6 movements, but the 6th movement is going to be number 7. And the second thing that was done in China was that movements 1 through 6 were usually done for the first 3 years of practicing gods, and movements 2 through 7 were begun after that time. So we're going to be working also on openings and closings in gods. You could look at this from several different angles. Opening and closing is not one thing. It's a continuum of processes that all together are called opening and closing. But the first thing is that you want to get the ability to have the space in between your joints evenly open and close from inside the joints. So if we would take one or more of the joints, you have a very simple thing. You have a top of the joint and you have a bottom of it. And there is a space in the middle. And that's just going to be a question of getting the top and the bottom to move. Now, this is just to get your body set up. That's not really what opening and closing is. When you open and close, from the middle, you get the space to open. You get the space to close. And it's a movement like this. It's not just in and out, but it is spherical. And that's within every joint. This is because the center of every one of your joints is an energy gate. And what you're trying to do is to get the function of that energy gate opening and closing to become very stable. Because people have all kinds of joint problems. They're usually not that stable. So what the central issue is going to be is that first, by moving the bones themselves, you're going to start getting the joints to be able to close and open, and that is going to compact the fluids inside the joint and expand the fluids inside the joint. But the real game is about directly affecting the energy gate that's in the center of the joint so that it starts opening and closing with a regular pulsing rhythm. And it is this regular pulsing rhythm inside the center of the joint that is ultimately responsible for that joint doing what it's supposed to do in the course of its lifespan. While you're alive, the thing that is regulating the motion of your joints, including when you get arthritis or rheumatism or pain, all sorts of stuff that happens in old age, including accidents, is to get that gate to become very strong, because it is what involuntarily happens when you're asleep, when you're not looking about it. That tells the joint within a natural parameter when this joint should open and close in the ways that are most beneficial for how the body works. And that's still not the end of it. The larger thing that most people care about is, I have a problem and I want to have my problem fixed. Well, that's how most problems related to joints are going to get fixed. But there is something else that's very important. From the perspective of God's playing in the clouds, because the central issue in all Qigong, no matter what it is, what is called in Chinese qigong, which means all the energies of your body are cooperating with each other, are integrated and smoothly moving together as though one part, like the finest of switch watches with hundreds of parts, but they all are working in exact coordination with each other. So for that to happen, energy has to transfer between one joint and the next and the next and the next. And this creates a grid within the body, which is one of the ways energy circulates in your body. And the point of openings and closings is that eventually, when they get done well, when the center of one joint is pulsing well, it then naturally creates a current that goes until it and the next joint are both pulsing with somewhat of an equal strength. And this is what you do with the energy gate system of the body. It's a major power grid within the body. So your body doesn't just have one power grid. Your body has between 4,000 and 5,000 energy channels that all do something. And what you are doing with your joints is one of the things that makes it all work very smoothly and well. So the weakening of the energy gates inside the joint progresses from babyhood to extreme old age. And this is because your superstructures are controlled by your joints. A baby is a floppy, gushy thing, but then you see the classic 90-year-old man where everything has closed down. And if you want to have those things stay open, or or open back up, you have to not only get the joints to be able to open and close smoothly, but you need to get the current that moves between all the joints to move smoothly. So there are very important things. These are very important things in terms of aging as a general proposition, or in terms of if you have ever suffered a really, really serious illness, you will find that it will start closing down the joints in your body. And the reason why is that it is closing down the overall flow. And it is strengthening the overall flow that can help you recover your health. Now, spiraling is critical. It's a critical component of all the advanced methods of Neigong. For example, the other energy arts courses, spiraling is the course that is usually taught just before you get to Gods. And spiraling is a very, very tricky thing. First of all, spirals are what seamlessly connects all circles and all Neigong methods, all the methods of Neigong and what they do inside the body, because it's circular. All a spiral is two circles joined together, and that's how they move. That's how the energy of one circle moves to the next. So, second point is that qi always moves through your energy channels by spiraling and not in a linear manner. Eventually, twisting or spiraling the arms is essential to get the most out of Gods. But you can't get it in the beginning. So you start with rotation. And then you start getting twisting in the fascia of the system. And I don't know whether you can really see this or not, but I'm just, for the moment. This, of course, is rotation. I'm just using the muscles to turn my arm. But now I'm going to spiral not spiral, actually, I'm sorry, I'm twisting the fascia. So that's a different movement. And then if you do spiraling, it feels entirely different. It's funny, one of the things that happens for me when I manage to do spiraling is I can feel the energy move through my neck and head area and my body, but it's just that all of a sudden that strengthens that particular connection point. So it creates an entirely different type of internal body movement. It moves chi in an entirely different way. And you don't see this on acupuncture charts because the charts are two-dimensional. If you were to try to show all this stuff with spiraling going through everything, it would be virtually a mess. It's very, very hard thing to visually depict. You could do it today, perhaps by using the methods of CGI, but it didn't exist a long time ago. So you can think of a spiral, and your mind can go through your body making spirals, but to actually have those spirals stabilized takes a certain amount of practice. So usually you start off making rotations. Ultimately, it is caused by a spiral. Twisting is ultimately caused by a spiral, but it is not a spiral. But spiraling is caused by spiraling, and the greatest thing about spiraling is that eventually it has to end up being in the center of your bone marrow, because that is how your limbs connect to your central channel. We will not go beyond rotating the arms and legs for the first few months. As the program progresses, twisting will be introduced in the remaining movements of Gods. And when people can rotate their arms and legs easily, they should be sufficiently loose to be able to learn to do twisting deeper in the body. If you're in your legs, if you want to spiral, the tissues need to be twisting or spiraling evenly. And what happens is that the tissue in one part of your leg will stop, pulling your fascia out of place. And when it pulls your fascia out of place, this has the ability either to destabilize the balance of your spine or destabilize the bones that are running through your legs. And so initially, there is no attempt to do anything with the bones of the legs or spiraling in the spine. You have to get all the soft tissues around them spiraling first. You have to actually lose all that pulling pressure before you can start playing with the bones. As you get the twisting to go deeper and deeper into the body, eventually the twisting is going to pull all the fascia and the tissue right to your bones. And then at that stage, again, you have to spend time getting the tissue that is trying to pull on your bones to become loose enough and soft enough that it is not pulling on your bones. In the beginning, it does. In the beginning, it does. And a little bit is okay. But a lot is definitely not okay. Because that's how you actually start destroying the bone structure. Now, if you're young and very healthy, rotating your arms or your legs is not very hard. At least rotating your arms is not hard. Perhaps I shouldn't say that rotating your legs is not hard. You'll find in all sort of sports, they have to take people through all kinds of training so that they can rotate their legs comfortably. And that reason why is that you have a torso that is a big weight, and the big weight is causing pressure on your legs. And through the fascia and other tissues, that's going into your bones. And if what's on the top does not translate smoothly into the legs, the motions with your upper body can pull on the connections of your tissue into your bones. And that can cause them to weaken. That can cause them to be injured. And as a matter of fact, if you want to go through all sorts of major sports injuries, you could track it right back to this, right back to the fact that the legs were not loose enough to actually be able to rotate. In our modern times, stretching to most people means a vertical thing. We don't think of horizontal or lateral twisting. Twisting the tissues that go from side to side. But if you talk about normal life, this is the stretching you do the most. Most people do not put their heads between their legs many times a day. You might do it for special events. You do it for certain physical exercises, and you may do it if you're rock climbing. But the fact of the matter is that actions where your arms are turning is common stuff. And understand something, if the tissue of your forearm doesn't twist, then it starts pulling on your neck and your upper back. And that's how people get neck, back, and shoulder pain. Because if you can't get a clear flow through, the place you can't get a clear flow through starts pulling on something. And these pulls over time cause problems. And these are especially common as people age. So many people with arm damage or significant stiffness will probably need to rotate for quite a while before it will be safe to twist or spiral the arms. So something that you hear all the time is that from accidents or athletic training or other injuries that people experienced in their adolescence or teen years, or even earlier, 20 years later, they have all kinds of injuries appearing inside their body. And most of these injuries can actually be reduced or eliminated if you just simply are able to go back to the place where the rotating in the spiral of the body got frozen, and then free it up so it can freely move. That's even above and beyond that when you start getting these injuries, you start developing scar tissue inside the body. Scar tissue inside the body can be broken up by the most skilled body workers, but many of them are not able to do it well. And it can be a real problem because you can get major scar tissue as well as I'm not sure what I said there. But all that tissue has to get loosened. And you have the same thing when you have a scar that's pulling all the tissues right back to the bone,
Mhm.
possibly even to your internal organs. It is that constant pulling and stretching in your internal organs and glands over decades that starts causing serious health problems to manifest. So there has to be a looseness or fluidity inside the body. And it's not just an idea so that you will move better or look better on the dance floor. It's all because the actual physical mechanisms of your body depend upon it. Now, we always start rotating with the arms for one simple reason. You don't have gravity on them. However much you weigh from your waist up, the pressure is always going into your legs, which leaves your margin for error very small. Then, from the experience you have with how to get the arms to rotate, you can start safely transferring it to the legs. But to go cold to just rotating the legs is not a very wise procedure. So God's has a very definite way in which it is trained so that it does not produce injury. Many other forms of physical movement are concerned about doing the movement right and not necessarily about being concerned about how it can injure the body. But the first and foremost rule in Qigong is that it should make you healthy. And if it is making you unhealthy, you should forget that Qigong. So we're now going to start going into the joints of the body one by one. And we'll start with the easiest ones in the arms first. So I want you to simply start with one hand and one finger and rotate the finger. Not separately from the rest of it, but rotate the finger. And then rotate another finger. And another one. And another one. Rotate each of your fingers just so you have that sense of what that is. And then, of course, rotate them all together. And then do that with the other hand. So just, you can do whatever finger you want to start with. Doesn't really matter. With your intention focused on the finger, you can actually feel something happening in each finger as you do that. So all you're looking for here is that the rotation is smooth to begin with. And you want to now focus on the Lao Gong point in your palm. And you're feeling the rotation of the bones in your palm. And you want to rotate it as far as it'll go without force. But one of the things that you want to really begin to focus on is there a point at which there is a glitch? Is there a point where something grabs? And if there is, The way to work with that is then to rotate back to where that movement was smooth and rotate up to that glitch and just feel it. If it's still there, rotate back. And you just keep working on that movement until the glitch goes away and all of a sudden you can rotate all the way without any interference whatsoever. So you would work on the bones of the hand and the Laogong point, and then do it with the wrist. And obviously, you want to really eventually do both arms, but you want to just see, does that wrist go all the way, or oh, what's that? There's something not moving smoothly. So just go up to that, not through it, but just up to it, and then go back. And it may not immediately smooth out. It may take a while. You may need to do it over a few days before that really smooths out and you can get the movement to go right through without any kind of glitch at all.
David, the glitch possibility that you're talking about is in the hand at this point?
Well, I had progressed to the wrist, but it could be in your fingers in the first one. It could be in the bones of the hand. It could be in the wrist, or it could be in all of them.
Okay, I wasn't feeling much resistance in my hands, but the left shoulder, because I have a significant rotator cuff problem there. It stops the wrist from going a little bit farther.
Uh-huh.
But it's there, not here.
So the you could do both. Okay. So we're starting with focusing on the specific joints because we're talking about the energy gates here. So, but you've raised a specific issue for you. So I think that you could think about this as a separate practice also, in addition to working. If the wrist is absolutely smooth, great. Then feel whether doing that kind of a very subtle, smooth movement has any effect on your shoulder.
Okay.
But that would be a separate practice.
Okay. And just to clarify, this is rotating
We're
to what extent?
we're just
I'm sorry?
rotating at the moment. We're not thinking about twisting or spiraling.
Okay.
And in a way, it's also helping us prepare to be able to understand the difference, because our tendency is to think, oh yeah, I'm turning my arms, so I'm twisting. You probably don't think you're spiraling, but you may think you're twisting, but it is significantly different. Rotation and twisting are two completely different things happening.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where it's too bad we're not all together, because one of the for one thing, just being able to see it more clearly, it can be helpful. But the other thing is you can put your hands on my arm and feel the difference,
Yeah.
because they feel different. It doesn't feel the same. So
Right.
um, we can't do that at the moment, but maybe one of these days. Except for Mr. Bynum, unless you're passing through, in which case I'll be very glad to see you.
Yeah, I'm hoping to be passing through. We're actually got our shack in Cape Cod in October.
Oh, you
So,
did?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
So we're looking forward to that.
Good. So, and then the elbow. And this is really obviously an important joint for us. So there are two ways that you can rotate the elbow. So the first one is that simply fixing the elbow in one position, you can rotate it to one side and then the other. And this would be, again, a place where if you found that you had a glitch or a grab or something not moving smoothly, you do the same kind of thing. You can work on it and get it gradually to open up, and you move through. So that would be one way to work with the elbow. The other one, which is very much related to twisting, but is still rotation at this point. And those of you who've done Dragon and Tiger may remember this exercise from posture 2, movement 2 in Dragon and Tiger. But that's where now we're going to focus on the movement of the elbow. And we're going to rotate the elbow in, up, over, and out, and back down to pointing straight to the earth. So you go in towards the spine, up, over and out, and down. You do not go in the other direction, period. The other direction can actually cause issues. So you only want to go in that one circle. The traditional way of doing this, rather than just doing it in midair, is to, let's see, I don't know whether you can, yeah,
Yeah,
you
we can see.
We can see you. Yep, yep.
is to attach your middle finger to the wall, and then keeping touching the wall, make that movement. And one of the things about this is that you have to make sure you keep the shoulder relaxed. And what happens with this is that you connect directly to the scapula. And I've talked about connecting the elbow to the scapula, and it is this kind of circular movement that really does the trick. So this is a really big thing to work on.
So I just want to be sure I have that right. So with if I'm doing it with my right arm,
Mm-hmm.
my elbow's going around in a clockwise direction. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And with the left arm, it's going a counterclockwise direction.
correct. That's correct. And so you want to find a distance from wherever you're touching the wall that you have some flexibility. You don't want to be way away or too close to it, either one, but just play with it till you find where you have the ability to do that. And this loosens the shoulder. It makes that connection to the scapula, and eventually it connects to the spine. So it's a really important movement to be clear about. If you've done Dragon and Tiger, which I think you have, can't remember if you all have or not, but when you go out in two, that same elbow movement is present
Right, yeah.
in that flow,
Mm-hmm.
ideally. It's not easy to do at first, but so it is that rotation, that circular rotation of the elbow that connects to the scapula and the spine and really creates that smooth flow eventually from the spine to the fingertips. Presuming that you have all the glitches out in every joint along the way. So that's your practice for the moment.
Oh, cool. So we have to wait till next week for the mysterious number 7.
It won't even be next week.
Oh, okay. So it's a while coming.
It's down
A
the road.
while.
It's down
Okay.
the road still a little bit.
Okay.
That's, believe me. um, yeah, seven. Yeah, seven's fun.
Do our feet leave the ground?
Yes, do it horizontally. No.
Well, thank you, David. I have another thing I got to get going to, but
Oh, okay.
good. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, have a good week.
Likewise.
Both of you.
Everyone have a good week.
Everyone, yeah.
Absolutely. So any last minute questions, Bill?
No. I understand what's going on. We can continue with one for the time being.
For the time being, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Until I tell you to stop. That was that's what we will be doing, but it's not instantaneous.
Okay.
And there's a reason that you should only do 6, so that's why we drop 1? I'm curious as to why we had dropped 1 to add 1.
Oh, because supposedly at at the point of transition from dropping 1 and beginning with 2, you've achieved what you needed to with
Yeah.
it is no longer necessary.
Okay. I understand. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good.
Good.
Anything for you, Bill?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Enjoy
good
this
week.
weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Get the screens on the windows.
I think Friday I'm going to be saying it's too hot.
Yeah, right. I won't be saying that. But I'm an anti-cold person.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, I will see you next week.
Great. Take care.
See you, Joanne.
Bye-bye, Bill.
And I don't know that I have anything.
Yeah, and I don't really have any questions. I did practice gods, but I did very little of the form. And then I do find that yeah, you can't do one without thinking of the other once you know them. It's kind of like I think with all of these practices, right? They all influence them. But this week I really was, and it was with Easter and the like, with the family coming. My sister showed up. It was,
Oh, yeah.
oh, we can't come on Sunday, so we'll be there on Saturday. So then you just kind of adding more days to your social calendar. But anyway, yeah, I did really want to spend time on kind of reading and reflecting on kind of getting an understanding of thinking about yin and yang and inner dissolving and all of that, and then obviously practicing as well. So
yeah.
I don't think, I mean, I think that of what we just did now, I think, yeah, the elbow will obviously be, I felt like I had it all until we got to the elbow, and then I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's going to need some more work.
You know, and that's critical in, of course, in Tai Chi.
That's right.
Too often it just tends to get stuck. And it's constantly moving in every movement.
That's right. And I think I have been focusing on that in gods, and one of the things I didn't say about what did happen this week in gods was particularly at 4, just being better at relaxing the elbows and seeing how that really made a difference as the arms came up. And also with the position of the hands, because I think a lot of us were doing it backwards. So then kind of unlearning and relearning. The elbows are a really important part. So I was very aware of the elbows in the practice in gods in the last week. And then that's another one of those things that really quite clearly transfers to the Tai Chi form.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's also an important part of obviously of all the gods, but also 3 is another place where it becomes
oh yeah.
there's a crucial awareness especially between the elbows and the scapula there. So
Yep.
yeah, so we will take caution with our back, although I did find it, as you were particularly talking about the joints and the tightening up and kind of all of those connections, I feel like that's definitely a piece of my challenge, is particularly because my knees have been so bad for so long.
Yeah.
Of old falls. When I was much younger, but that means they've been there for a longer time.
Right.
Not
Right.
like recent falls, they're old falls. Yeah.
It's yeah. I've been, I don't know why particularly this week, but I've been thinking a lot about my experiences on the ranch and in the rodeos, and how that relates to what I'm experiencing now.
Right.
This,
Right. And we, in sports, we hear of that, particularly with football players, right? Because it's so intense. The impact is so intense. But
yeah.
so we kind of sometimes, I think, forget how much things happen. I mean, I have a number of friends who have been in car accidents who have just, decades ago and are still
Yeah.
really suffering with all sorts of ramifications. So, but yeah, no, I think this will, I have, I look forward to this week of practice.
Good. Okay.
And remind me when our next session starts so I don't get behind in the money. I assume you eventually got that check.
Oh, yes, I did. I thought I wrote you maybe. Maybe it just,
I'm sorry, yeah. And then yesterday I heard the postage is going back up again. I'm like, well, if it was an efficient system, I don't mind. But
I
the
know
system
it's
gets
got,
worse and the prices get higher.
I know that doesn't somehow equate, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Um,
So I will, I will definitely get it out sooner next time.
um, you're asking me a question that I can't
Can't answer right
off
now.
the top of my head.
I should have this down better, but myself.
All
But
right,
anyway.
I will. I'll let you know. I'll check.
Yeah, I'll just make sure
I'll
get
look
it.
in my book so I can tell you when it is.
Fine. Great.
Good.
All right. Thank you, David. Lovely. Great class. Great class.
You're welcome. Have a good week.
Okay. You too. Yeah. Enjoy
How
the
are
warmth.
things going with your work?
There's a lot of juggling. That's a lot. But one of the exciting things is that we are organizing for this protest ship, the Golden Rule. It was really the first protest ship, which gave rise to Greenpeace and a lot of other boats that have, tried to sail into areas to intervene. And it was 1958.
Yeah.
And they were trying to sail into the areas where there was atmospheric nuclear testing going on. And so the boat, the very War Resisters League was involved, and the it wasn't Voluntown yet, but the people who started Voluntown Peace Trust were also involved back in the late 50s. And what happened was the boat was sold, and then in 2010, I think it sunk in a gale out on I think it was somewhere in the California, one of those marinas, and the Veterans for Peace heard about it and raised it and have been sailing it around with the same goals of nuclear free world. And so they are presently sailing up the East Coast. They're in the Washington area now, and so they'll be in New London Groton June 9th and 10th.
Oh, good.
And so I have to finish doing the permit today. It's like I'm doing the history of it. I'm doing the permits. I mean, we have a team of people, but I'm the one in touch with the people who are on the boat. So it's very exciting because I think it's both a history that we don't all know. We just kind of take some of this for granted, that, oh yeah, things happened, or, oh yeah, there's Greenpeace, or whatever. And that it's another way of gathering people to kind of understand both the problems with nuclear weapons as well as some of the potential solutions, because the UN does have a treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, which is technically in force as of 2 years ago, but of course no one is going to enforce it. But it is at least a vehicle for helping to focus on the issue, and for nations to say, okay, we're not going to harbor weapons. We're not going to allow boats with nuclear weapons on them. We're not going to make them anymore. Although most of the countries that have signed on are the countries more likely to be victimized by them rather than they're not. None of the big powers have signed on. But so that's kind of a big part of what I'm doing, and still the community land trust work we're in high orientation time. So
Yeah.
but
Wow, that's exciting though.
it is exciting. And then one of the things that I'm kind of well placed for is that I know people. So I because of War Resisters League and Community for Nonviolent Action, so I actually knew some of the people who were on the boat in the 50s. Particularly a Quaker named George Willoughby and another activist named Jim Peck. Jim was in both freedom rides and very active. Also a World War II resistor. And then there was one line in the book written by the man who captained the Golden Rule, that he had been inspired by somebody named Harold Steele, who had tried to do this, who was a British pacifist. Well, I have connections through Warrior Sisters International. So on our WRI internal email list, I wrote and asked, and a few people like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll have time. And then the person who for many years now has been the editor of Peace News, which has been going since the 40s.
Yeah.
He pulled out, I guess through metadata, he pulled out all the articles about this first attempt by this British pacifist from 1957 and 1958. So I just read them all last night. It's just fascinating. I mean, I get so much inspiration from kind of, understanding, kind of people's thoughts and people's strategy about this, and his personal comments being interviewed about and this really resonated with me. Kind of, I think, we think, oh, what sacrifices do we have to make? But people who believe in war make great sacrifices. Soldiers go off all the time and they come back maimed. They may not come back at all. And then this came out of him being criticized for taking this risk of going and doing this action. He said, this is not much of a risk at all.
No.
Because, there are always, whenever Coast Guards exist, will stop you from going into the restricted areas. I mean, you're really doing it in many ways as that kind of, just like we sit in front of a weapons factory. It's not like you really stop the production of weapons.
Yeah.
But what you do is focus on what is happening and, hopefully have some demand. So I think my understanding is all of this led to the treaty on the, what was the treaty called in 1963 that Kennedy signed to stop atmospheric testing. And so that, I mean, all of these things were kind of part of the movement that led to that. And again, when people say, oh, I vigil and nothing happens, it's like, we have to do more. We have to be really serious about the strategy, because there's a friend of mine said, the people on the other side are working hard all the time. And we need to kind of collectively understand that. And it's hard to match that sometimes, but anyway, but yeah, so but it's kind of like, oh my God, so many things, they're all coming together, which is great on some level, because there's like Warrior Sisters League's 100th is connecting to this and a couple of other things, but it just means busy time.
Yeah. Well, good luck with all of that.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
I'm sure you'll be hearing more about the Golden Rule. Yeah, it's actually going to be going down the Connecticut River, and then they're going up to Hartford and Middletown, and then coming back down and coming to New London Groton for a few days. So
wow.
It'll be in the area.
I'll try to see it.
Yeah, you definitely come down. We're going to have tours of the boat. We're going to have some sailing around on the Thames, probably about 8 different hour-long tours. So we'll have some opportunity. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. Anyway. Great.
All right. So, yeah. Glad you asked, huh?
Hang in there.
Never dull, as a friend says, never a dull moment.
Not in your life, no.
No, the dull part to me is some of the admin stuff, like figuring out what I say on this particular line of the application in order for it to sync with the insurance the boat has, that kind of.
Yeah.
I don't like that part, but it's got to be done. So.
Absolutely.
It got to be done. Anyway, all right.
Hang in there.
Hang in there. Say hi to Jane for me. And,
okay, will do.
See you next week, hopefully.
All right. Bye.
Right.